right
I did
in.
not have mine on for roll call, so I didn't do that.
Yeah, well, we can do roll call again, that's fine.
Do you want to? I was gonna say it's live on
Sure.
there too. It's up to you.
But aren't these where the transcripts come from, so it's
It
gonna
works
be
for me.
easier?
Yeah,
Both. Let's do roll call one more time. Better to be safe than sorry. Council President Wolf.
here.
Councilperson Camera.
Here.
Councilperson Bruger.
Here.
Councilperson McNamara.
Present.
And Councilperson Koss and Councilperson Shrestha are both excused. And I did it in the same order that time.
Beautiful.
Special meeting topics tonight, we have a couple items that we are gonna go over, a little bit of legislation, as well as some information to get us prepared for Thursday night's council meeting. Next Thursday night's council meeting. I'm going to throw this over to Mark and in case you have something you wanted to talk about as far as legislation goes.
The only legislation that's on there, and of course, unfortunately, Nikki is not here to advocate for herself, but I will advocate as best I can. I think we all know Council President Shrestha very much would like our leash law to be changed to just dogs must be leashed. I am actually also at this point in favor of that. I've come around on it. Is there any other appetite for it?
So, I still don't like the idea of just dogs must be leashed.
Okay, so
I-
no, that's a no.
I would throw out there different language. In our email, we got an email from a resident who cited, I think it was City of Columbus, who instead of a reasonable control standard, had a direct control standard and defined that fairly well.
Okay.
And I think that adopting that same direct control standard, because it described what that direct control was, and it meant either on a leash or that the responsible person could demonstrate that the animal responded to commands, right? And so that would be my preference, because I think that if you make an ordinance that says dog must be leashed, you create a number of unintended consequences, right? Or the potential for a number of unintended consequences. So Daphne chews through her lead because she's done that before and now runs away. And now you're strike 1 to 3 to a class F misdemeanor, right? For no fault of your own, but that's what the ordinance is. She's neither in reasonable control and she's not on a leash. You know, that is an unintended and I know that the desire is to say, yeah, but that's sort of a one-off.
No, I would say more the desire is to say, I don't think any officer in the village, if they saw the dog running away from me as I chased with a broken leash, would say, excuse me, sir, your dog's not under
See,
current
but
control.
now you're asking for special enforcement.
Yes.
Right, now you're asking for the
I'm
officer.
asking for your car has to be operable in your driveway, but if I get a puncture on my way home and park my
Right.
car before I get it to Firestone, I'm probably not gonna get a ticket, cause I'm like, look, I just got a flat tire.
Yeah, but
What
you're
do you want
asking
me to
for,
do?
you're asking for the officer to apply a reasonableness standard when you've specifically eliminated a reasonableness standard from the legislation. Right, that's what you're saying, I would expect the officer to be reasonable and see that this is a circumstance that was immediately out of my control. But if we write the legislation to say must be on leash, must be on leash.
It does eliminate some issue. I mean, when you do that, the problem you gotta take into account, a lot of people have direct control of their animals and want to play with them in the parks, in the
Yeah.
green spaces.
Yeah.
And they're gonna take them off the leashes. And so what you're gonna have to do is we're gonna have to sign everything saying must be leashed all the time. And that, I think that's a little problematic. So we're saying pick up after your dog. And if you don't want dogs and their owners here, which I know there's a few of them want to enjoy the green space, that's what you're going to be enforcing from this point. Nobody's gonna be able to take their dog off the lead anywhere. The exception will be the school's property, because they can set their own policies on the school property, right? Or any other private property.
Yeah, so that's what I would advocate for. But I know that I don't know if anybody else has anything they wanted to share on it, and I'm trying to find.
I have it right here if you want.
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
So direct control is defined as the following: no owner of any animal shall permit such animal to run at large on any property not his own. The owner shall have the animal securely leashed or under direct control at all times. And direct control means the animal will come, sit, and stay on command from the owner.
I mean, I think that's great, except for when it's not.
It still seems like
Well,
it's
it's
so
always-
reactive.
It's always great for when it's not, until it's not,
I
right?
agree.
And that's
I
no
do
matter
like the
what the
language
standard.
of,
Go ahead, yeah.
what was it, there was a language in there that I think
Until there's a squirrel.
takes care of my dog.
I don't remember this book.
No owner of any animal shall permit such animal to run at large on any property not his own. If my dog escapes and is running away from me, I am not permitting that. That is not covered by that. I have not permitted that if the dog breaks its leash and runs. That is something
Well,
going against.
I think that's a whole adjudication of it, right?
Yeah.
Because,
I'm thinking I'm getting
because
cleared in mayor's
some people
court,
would
though.
argue that you not having a redundancy is a problem, especially if you have an animal that has thrown a leash in the past,
Yeah.
right? So, but I think that direct control standard is a compromise I'd be willing to buy in on. But, you know, a 100% leash all the time, I'll tell you, I'm a hard no on that.
And David, you were starting earlier, so what does you have to say on it?
I am much more in favor of the leash. I see a lot of improvement in the direct control standards, and I don't think I would vote against an improvement of the direct control, but I still think that my wish list includes the leash as well. And again, this is full disclosure, I do my best not to be biased, but I'm violently allergic to dogs, and I don't own them. So, I mean, that's, out there for public record, but I am in favor of stronger leashing. That's where I'm at.
So it sounds like about 2.5 for a leash. We of course don't have costs.
Yeah, I'm undecided at this point.
Yeah.
I
Okay,
can
it
be swayed
sounds
both
like-
ways.
Yeah, I can see
Beyond-
the arguments for sure.
Yeah,
I know.
beyond my
I like-
ideological concern is that you are creating an ordinance that criminalizes something before there's been a harm.
Yeah, well, that is like half the laws we have in this country are that.
Well, is that a good thing? Ideologically, I am opposed to criminalize something before there's a harm. It's the harm that should be criminalized. So, yeah, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, I do like the language of direct control.
Yeah.
I'd be in favor of that.
Yeah,
I think my personal thoughts are, I'd rather us change that and see how it goes, see if that's easier to enforce, and if it doesn't, you probably could sway me to leashes, so.
Excuse me.
Yeah, I think most people have some form of direct control, right? Now, the way an officer, and the chief explained this when he's in front of you next week, but the way I've seen an officer demonstrate direct control, my dog won't necessarily listen to someone else, but a really well-trained dog will listen to an officer and they'll test it. I've seen it on the oval done, where an officer will come and say, he was doing a little demonstration, because a lot of kids let their stuff run, I was no different with my dog. But sometimes that gets out of control, right? And so the officer's like, leash dogs, all right, whose dog can listen to command? And then he puts the dog through those exact, because it was City of Columbus ordinance, right? That OSU also follows. They set their own policies, but they're within the City of Columbus. So they'll demonstrate those 3 items, sit, what the other
Sit,
stay.
command?
Come, sit, and stay.
And the dog, if the dog can do that with the officer's command, it demonstrated direct control. He was showing the students essentially how they would apply it. And so that's how they would do it in the field if they needed to.
right.
But most people have some semblance of direct control. I mean, my dog, as an example, he's a little schnauzer, and hopefully you're not allergic to him. He doesn't shed, but I don't know what your full allergies are.
I'm allergic to
Oh.
every dog I've ever touched. Every dog has ever touched me,
I'm
so.
sorry to hear that's the dander or something, but
Yep.
but he's pretty good listening, right? He's pretty well trained, and he may lose his mind with a squirrel, that's for sure, and go after the squirrel. But in a social setting with other dogs, he's fine. He'll listen and come, and I have decent control, and I was a responsible owner to leash him when I feel he will lose his mind, right? And so and I think most people have dogs along those lines, right? They'll take them off under safe conditions, they'll play with them, they'll listen under certain things. If there's something that distracts the dog.
Well, I would say
they'll
most
listen.
people do not have that. Most people have dogs that will not listen, but.
My dog doesn't listen worth a
Yeah.
lick. No.
You would be surprised. A lot of people, dogs listen fairly well, but
Yeah.
not purely in the best. They're not fully trained, I think, to listen to an officer in the field.
Mhm.
There's only a few I've codes and can do that. So that's the standard, that's how it'll be applied. I tend to agree that you maybe wanna go in steps, just like we do with traffic control or anything else. I think that's a good way to go.
Well, and with Councilperson Shrestha not here and this being sort of her, big thing, I think we'll just sort of push that on the edge of the table there. And if Jason or Council President Wolf wants to reach out and say, look, have you looked at this direct control, is this
So she
more?
provided
She
the,
provided-
it was in
provided
those
that.
emails that she handed out to us,
Yeah.
that's why I couldn't find it
Okay,
in this, it was from a resident that had emailed
yeah.
Stacy.
So we'll check with that and talk about this, next month or what have you.
Yeah.
It's not going anywhere. That was really all that was on board for legislation as far as like new business item discussing other than going over legislation.
What is it? I have no animosity towards dogs, for the record. I still pet them and I just wash my hands, but
No, nobody believes you have any animosity towards dogs.
Alright. Eric, do you want to start
Yes, ma'am, I'd be
going
happy to.
over these options? This is for the facility building. The options, he handed out these flyers last week,
Yeah.
and then here they are again, and we'll let him go over all of them in detail.
Before you start that, can I ask one quick question
Certainly,
for
sir.
perspective? Part of this consideration was we were waiting on advice from council to just how much can we alter before it triggers problems? And so what is that advice?
We're gonna lead into all that wonderful stuff, Councilman Wolf. So I will start with that.
Yes, please.
We will. So I'm gonna start by saying there are some interesting subtle differences between a charter municipality and a statutory municipality that we run into from time to time. This is one of those unique differences of where not having a charter can stick it to you a little bit. And we don't have a full, because our construction council's out today, but I had a discussion with Jesse and we'll have something for you in writing early next week, probably tomorrow, once Steve with our construction council is back in. The assumption we are going under though, at this point in time, is that you cannot accept any alternates. And even if they're under 10%, because we, unbeknownst to us to some degree, I would say full degree, if we had provided an architect's estimate early on, because there's some case law here, right?
Okay,
For a statutory, and we believe this because it's a statutory municipality issue, and I'm gonna let Steve weigh in on that, that's the last piece of this, but we can't, if we had provided estimates, like the architect provides the main estimate for the bid, when we provide these alternates, probably you could have accepted some of these within the 10% range, right? But right now, we've gotta work under the assumption until Steve fully weighs in on this between tomorrow and Monday, that we can't accept any of this. So I'm gonna go over some options of how we move forward on anything you may want to choose, okay?
okay.
Well, I am gonna start off with saying, there's absolutely none of these I would approve.
Okay.
But
We need to go
before we worry about how much, whether we can legally do it.
Start with far negative before we
Yeah.
get to it, so if
And
I
I-
may, let me finish, please.
Yeah, let him
Okay,
finish
sorry.
and I'll
So-
give 2 cents on that.
Yeah, so the alternates are there for a number of reasons, okay? The alternates are there because obviously we knew we were in an odd construction situation, right? So for example, and we just didn't know where some of these would come in at, all right? And we wanted not to keep adding to the bid unnecessarily, but without giving council some ability to, weigh in on as options, right? So many of them are good ideas. Staff and the architect got together from a discussion standpoint to suggest quite a few of them. The asphalt shingle is just a normal one because you may want to switch it out and see what the difference is. We wouldn't say that's one you want to accept because again,
Oh, well, I was gonna say, except for that one, I want us to keep a good roof.
yeah, the
Yeah.
roof will last for virtually as long as the rest.
But the roof is part of the original thing, so
Yeah.
I don't
Right, you don't have
consider.
to worry about the alternate in that
Yeah.
case. It's just,
Oh, well, then
for
I-
your
I-
purposes of
I-
seeing it. Sometimes we have councils that make a decision regarding shingles, and interesting, we just don't know, so we added in, all right? Aside from the shingles, all right, other things have certain importance, and that's why they're in there. Some of them, as you noticed, are, like woodland mixed plantings, concrete, steppers, which go around the structure. Those are for both access and for aesthetics, right? These are things you could do at a later date, you can do, you know, there's not something that can be, that necessarily related to construction directly. It's nice to do them while everyone's on site, you probably have a little bit of savings while they're here. But it's something you can definitely do down the road. There are some things that are definitively related to construction and you get a one-time
Yes.
do. So for example, the glycol snow melt system, this is something we put in there.
Obviously, you have to do.
You have to do when we put the new concrete down. And there's good reasons for it. Where you put them in, you don't have to use salt anymore, it's an automated system. You don't have a problem of icing up and people clearing the snow anymore up front. It saves maintenance, it saves salt, right? That's why, it's a big number, you know, for that purpose, but it works. People use them in different applications. So that's in there because we knew that was gonna be a big number, so it's definitively an alternate. You may want your maintenance guy to be out there shoveling snow and take it, you know, do it that way for the rest of the time. It's okay. Police carport is another one that's useful, saves on energy of, you know, how the cars are cooled and keeps the crap off of them so they're ready to go. It's definitely most police forces have them. I will tell you, this is actually on the cheaper end. This is the cheapest possible carport you can get. I've done carports and they're expensive. You know, bigger ones are expensive. So this is a good price. I mean, even given our stuff. But it's still $91,000. But it's something, again, that can be done because it's not directly attached to the structure. It can be done at a later date, right? The other one here, manual transfer switch is one I did want to just quickly go over. A second. Oh, that's the one that,
It allows you to switch over to a generator.
correct, the alternate to add a manual transfer. So the portable generator can be connected to run non-emergency circuits, which could be useful in the situations where you may want, you know, I'll give you some examples. Obviously, Minerva Park gets affected by the power outages here, right?
Yes.
Because you have a bunch of older infrastructure from an electric standpoint, you've got older homes with above wires, you definitely are at risk for people to lose their power. And people won't necessarily, I know people in the new sector, especially when they're putting in their solar systems, are putting in their full house batteries, okay, which is good. That'll be helpful. But the fact is, and I see in other municipalities, Powell where I worked, when we redesigned the system there, we have a solar system we put in some years ago with the Obama money. We set it up so that we could emergency generate for we had a battery backup system, emergency generate for and they have a big chamber room. So that when people lost their power in their homes, which happened after ice storms, they could come there for shelter, keep warm, plug in their phones. It was a safe place. So I will simply tell you that the emergency generator that's spec'd for this structure, the new structure, will handle emergency circuits, which will be the red circuits, but there'll be non-emergency areas, which probably will be your council chamber, quite frankly, which is where you want to hook people into.
Do we already have an emergency generator
Yes.
in the plan?
Yes.
And
To
so
my
this is-
knowledge, yes.
Okay.
That was a discussion point,
Yeah.
I remember right, Mayor, that we wanted to do for
Yeah,
sure.
so that's good.
Good.
Yes, so definitely so this is to attach another generator that will simply allow for the rest of the building to be powered if necessary.
It does not include the generator though, right?
No, it would
It's
be-
just the
Yes,
Switch.
access
Your ability
point.
to do
Yeah.
so.
correct, correct. But those are, you've seen those portable
Yeah,
Hondas
yeah,
and stuff like that, so
yeah.
yeah,
We'll
But
want
that would
something
be
big,
enough
portable
to-
on it, Yeah.
yeah, you know what I mean.
Yeah.
That would be enough to run the heating and things like that?
Yes,
for the
everything
building?
else could be powered, depending on the size of the generator, so we can get the specs from the architects of what we would need.
Uh-huh,
I mean, it's in there as far as the rest of the
right.
usage, you know, so it would be useful to have. And I think for emergencies that do come up once every few years, boy, it's nice to have it when you need it.
If you remember back when this
30,000.
area was without power for
A week.
like a week, after, what was it, Hurricane Ike or whatever.
Yeah.
Right, it would have been really great if this building had a backup generator and you could power emergency things by pulling the ripcord and flipping the transfer switch. Otherwise, you wind up having to run extension cords from the generator and that's a big,
That's a big problem. Imagine with the heat waves and the cold snaps we have. If we're out for a week, a lot of people are suffering, and then it's nice to have some place where people who are really needed can come, elderly and otherwise,
Right.
for
Yeah.
emergency purposes.
to heat, to cool,
Right.
to charge devices.
Yep.
These are all things that we could do
We
with
went
that.
a while in the winter time, I remember. A couple days. I feel like it might have only been 2 or 3 days, but there was a winter that it was really.
I don't remember
been a
a
while.
winter one, but,
So-
yeah.
Can you remind me, the new building,
Yes,
do we have multiple units, AC units, heating
We
units?
do, we have several zones. We're obviously keeping our existing one downstairs,
Okay.
but it'll be just for, you know,
One zone.
it's not designed for the additions that we're putting on. So there'll be additions to handle the extra load
Okay.
Right.
on both sides.
So the new space will probably be on its own.
Oh, yeah, as well down here,
As-
you know, when they
yeah,
do
the
that.
new piece back
yeah.
here. Okay.
So to revisit what you said, are we through all of them or is there
No,
one
no,
more?
there's one more.
Go ahead and do yours.
Yes,
Yeah,
ma'am.
let's finish one through.
So that one's that you have to do with construction, otherwise it's much more expensive
Right.
when the electrician's gotta come back, cut things apart and redo them. So I would just say, that's one to seriously consider. The other one to seriously consider, and it can be done two ways. I think for your purpose, especially as a small community, and it was my suggestion, so I'll take credit for it, your electronic message signboard, I think it's very important and it's very useful to have the electronic section of the message board because it's programmable, you can put up your media announcements, you can put up all your announcements, communities, small and large, use them, and it's nice to have. So, and I would think, you know, it adds to your communication, right? It's something that has to be done when your monument sign's put in. It's not that it can't be done after, but it is a significant larger expense to do this thing later. The other thing you could do, and I'm gonna segue a little bit into, right now we can't add necessarily, unless Steve says otherwise, we can't necessarily add alternates to your ordinance. But what we can do for anything that you may want here is we would, since there's time to do this still, it's not like anyone else is necessarily gonna pick it up, but we could rebid any of these particular items under a certain time frame, and then everyone would have the option, you know, just for the specific alternates, there'd be an estimate provided by the architect, we'd meet all the requirements. So anything that you did want, even if we couldn't add it on Thursday, and we, by the way, there's also a change order, and we're gonna get rulings
That's
on
what I
change
wanna
orders.
ask, yeah.
Change orders you can do, but there is some, but since we've already listed these as alternates, in this particular case, we may not be able to change order them either. So we may just have to go through a process to add anything you want. So go ahead.
In that thinking,
Yes.
legal advice on could we structure each of these as their own project?
Good.
And in that case, then they wouldn't even necessarily need to go out to bid, except for the carport and the glycol,
Yeah, any of the,
snow.
yeah, any of the
Because
bigger
any-
ones.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Any of the bigger ones. Oh, you're right about that because they would
Yeah,
fall above.
because all the other ones are
Right
below
about that.
bidding threshold.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So,
Good
so
point.
the only ones that, and again, I would really want legal counsel to opine on that, because that's the kind of chicanery that gets council people put in jail.
We don't want to do that.
And I would rather not have that happen.
I like all my council people.
Yes, I like me not in jail. That's priority number one.
Agreed.
That wasn't
so-
very nice.
Well, I'm just being honest, right?
I also enjoy not being incarcerated.
Yes. So
Read my press,
I know.
nobody ever
That's true.
accuses me of being honest, or being nice, or honest.
so understood.
Yeah,
I spoke to Jesse today. When Steve, it's going to be on Steve's list first thing tomorrow. We'll get something. The attorneys are going to prepare something. We'll probably they'll prepare something for all of council to read concerning
Right.
alternates. These alternates specifically,
Mm.
how we handle them if we can't accept them on Thursday, and change orders.
Yeah.
in general.
So he is going to give us the change orders,
Yes.
because that's one of the, so I don't wanna skip too far into this, but change orders is very important.
It is.
When we were talking with finance, it would have been nice if we would have put on, and I'm saying this for everybody, on legislation, if it's 3.153, if we could have put 3175, just for the simple fact of having that little cushion for change orders. So I don't have to come back to them every 4 minutes and say, we want something, da 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 da. So,
yes, we can change that number if that's
If we're
fine.
still under the 10%,
Yes.
that
Yeah.
was my question, just so we have a 10,
We should probably
15.
adjust the legislation
Yes.
to that 10% limit.
You should definitely add a 10% contingency
Right.
above and beyond what the final bid is.
Yeah.
That's fine, because things happen, and you are
That's-
allowed to do change orders as long as the change orders are not like a whole new, like, if you change ordered this whole thing and
Yeah.
said, we just want a single standing building now, that's a no-no from a change order.
Right.
If you change order, even if it's a large piece, even if you said, hey, add me a shed outside, and the shed costs $60,000, you're okay still, because it's within the scope of the project and it's
Put
within that same
netting,
contract.
put netting around the
Right.
patio, a roof and.
Yeah.
My
You
concern,
just wanna get too
Screen
crazy.
in the,
Yeah.
So let me sum up what
Yeah.
I've heard so far, and then we can try to push this forward.
Yeah.
yes,
That there are methods by which we can accomplish any or all of these things.
Yes.
So now let's go through each one of these individually and see if among this subset of council, there is an appetite enough to continue pursuing any or all of them.
Can I ask one really quick question?
No, yes. Yeah, you're
It is, I know we're gonna get to it, but for example, on the deduct for asphalt compared to metal, we're saying at this point in time, you're getting a metal roof and there's not a darn thing you can do about it. And I'm
Right.
only saying that for the record because that was one of the big things that I can't believe you guys are doing a metal roof. So I'm saying that now that we're stuck with a metal
Don't
roof right
replace
now.
it in 10 years.
Yeah.
Right.
No, roofs last about 35 year shingles. So my father's done it for a long time. You can still get them. Anyways, not arguing that. I was just asking $55,000 for a metal roof is what some people have said, and I was not in favor of a metal roof. I'm just going there.
I think the standard replace cycle
It's about 25
is,
years.
is 15 to 20. Is
Not if it's done
Your
right.
insurance totally depreciates the roof in 15, for a lot of people, you need to replace them in 15 to 20, normal asphalt.
Again, I just want to say it for the record, at this point, council doesn't have the ability to not do a metal roof.
Yes.
Yes, that's.
And just in case people don't like you for that, you
Oh,
don't.
well, we do,
choice.
because we could adopt the
You could
alternative.
change order or do something else, but based on what we're,
Well,
discussion.
and I
But-
think that's a great question about the change order. That's what I wanted to say about the change order. I think, again, for record purposes, if there's something that they can't get, material-wise,
Right.
that's where our concern came
Our
in.
contract allows for us to, what you have to do, so the contract, the way the contract's written allows for, us to work with the vendor, in this case, contractor, to, because we anticipate that we're gonna run into problems.
Oh, yeah.
Right? But anything that's above and beyond perhaps what council allocates, yes, you have to go back to council and explain what
Right.
happened and get them to go along with it,
Right.
just like when the school had to go back, when they had to put
Oh,
on a
yeah.
temporary roof for 30,000, they'd go back to the board for approval, because it was a
Exactly.
hot mess out there, right?
No, that was my concern with the change order, so that's kind of why I wanted to make sure, is everybody okay that legislation actually says 3175 for small change orders? We're obviously not doing a $30,000
I
check.
think we can add, I think to be safe, my recommendation is we take that number and you add anywhere, I mean, normally in construction, we add 10%.
Where,
If you're comfortable, I would say 5%, but I would say you should add some percentage to whatever the final bid number of your.
well, wait, where are we on the threshold to where we couldn't approve?
So the thresholds, so that's not the issue. The alternates just simply can't be added because they perhaps weren't estimated
Right.
correctly. So they can't be, they would be brought under, if they were allowed, I know there's several things we're talking about here, but if they were allowed, they would come in under whatever the 10% rule is.
Right.
From the original number. So the original
Okay.
number, that with the posted number is 2.95. So you add 295,000 to 2.95 million,
Right,
okay? That's your full 10%.
which is what? I think that's where I'm going, I just wanna make sure it's not over
so
that.
Yeah, so that number, well, that's
3.265.
yeah, so if.
Okay, that's what
So if you
okay.
were to accept, if you were allowed to
Gotcha.
accept any of these alternates, if you were allowed, you would have to accept the ones that fit underneath that
Correct.
number that we just did, the
Okay.
3 point whatever
Right.
number, okay? Now, a contingency fund is totally
Totally
separate
different.
of this. That is
Okay.
when you run into change orders and you have issues in the field.
That's what I
And that's
needed.
what, that's
Okay.
what council has a discretion to allocate to the project, to say, all right, we accept the bid for 3.153 million, and we're gonna add 7% for contingency, or whatever number you wanna stick
Okay.
in there, that we, that way we can do something. Anything beyond that, come back and see us.
Well, we're in a council meeting, does anybody, this is not a vote thing, do you guys wanna discuss the percentage? Do you guys wanna, the admin to decide the exact amount or a percentage? How would you guys like to handle it?
I think that 10% sounds like the right target.
Right.
And,
Cause I don't wanna put something in that makes people not want
yeah.
to, okay, so we will add that line, that was just something that they wanted to talk about today. Okay, that was my only point.
Yeah.
So, I'd like to kind of go through these a little
Yes.
bit.
Yeah,
I think that was the
that's
next step. I
That's where I
interrupted.
was
Yeah,
trying to get us to.
so,
I had to know the answer to that for legislation.
Okay.
how do you wanna do this?
I have-
Just
I have questions.
So the first one.
Wait, I mean, we have.
Okay,
yeah,
first one, carport.
Yeah, go,
So, is that bid price, does that have a metal roof on it to match the other roof? Is my first question. I can't tell, it looks similar.
I would be, we'll verify that.
Okay.
I would venture to guess that's a no, but I could be wrong, so.
I mean, if they're suggesting that we put shingle on the rest of it, I imagine their price for this
It
is
may
price
be,
for
it may be
shingle.
more, it may not be the same it could be like, it's a different quality perhaps. It looks metal, but it's not, but it's still metal, but not the same as they put on this
Yeah.
roof. So it's perhaps different.
So
We'll
that's
find
the
out. We'll
question,
find out.
right? Because I think, you know, would they match?
Right.
Yeah.
And does that affect the price?
I think the bigger question
Because
is, do we need or want a carport?
Go
Um,
around.
I don't. So here's what we know, right? We know that it would help keep the cars nicer, right? It would keep the elements off the vehicles. It would keep them cooler in the summer, so they don't have to,
Spend as much gas to keep
spend
it
as much
cool.
gas. Though I don't know how much gas that really is. You probably need a lot of gas to make out 90 grand. But it is nice. This is not one that I would die for in any way, shape, or form.
And I will say, keeping the cars nice is nice, but we cycle through our patrol cars once every 4 years.
Yeah.
It's not like, oh, they're gonna be, if you don't have a carport, they're sitting out in the sun and the paint's peeling and cracking. We cycle through them every 4 to
Yeah,
5 years. They don't have a chance to get old, even in our weather.
An annual waxing would probably do just as much as a carport
Yeah.
for that purpose.
And, $90,000 is a lot of gas worth of, I really had to rev the engine to get the AC to kick in. And I don't have a carport and park in my drive, so, there's
Yeah.
also
And
that.
the vehicles are running all the time,
They are.
so,
Well, or one vehicle always is running
Yeah,
all the
one.
time.
Whichever one is
Anytime,
on
anytime an officer is on duty, so
Right.
if there's 3 officers on duty, there's
There might
3
be
cars
three cars
running.
running.
If there's 2
Oh,
cars,
okay.
yeah, because
Each
if they get a
just-
call,
They just
go.
have their own,
yeah.
okay.
They all have their
Five.
own, they don't all have their own car, but whoever's on shift has their own car,
Yeah.
yes.
I mean,
The nice part from what it looks like is they are actually much closer to the door than they were, which makes it nice too. Just when you're when you have prisoners or
Yeah.
bad people and you're bringing them into the building and all that kind of stuff.
Well, whether you have a parking lot or not, you can put the cars as close to the building as you can with a carport. And I will say, I was on my scooter the other day and it started to rain and I was right next to Blendon and sat in their carport for
Yeah.
Is
5
there-
minutes for the rain to stop.
is there any reason from our police department that this would be something that's necessary? Is this a want from them?
I would
Is this a
definitely say it's a
need?
want.
Okay.
I mean, I don't wanna speak for the chief, I don't wanna speak for the officers, I think, at this point, I think it's one of those things, it's kinda like every one of these alternates, it would be nice.
I think if it were a need, it would have been in the initial design, right?
Correct.
Because they
Correct.
were heavily engaged in the programming and that
It's
design.
definitely a want.
Well,
It's in the alternates, it's the only alternate that the police department gave. So it's definitely a want, I think, again, it would be nice to be able to not get into a car that's 100 degrees when you're wearing all of the uniforms and all that kind of stuff, and it's a nice feature to have. So I think it's one of those things that I think they're all thrilled that they might actually get a building, so this is a great want, or,
Yeah, well,
But-
I mean, I think the other thing is,
and it's something we can easily add. Now, if it costs $10,000 more 5 years from now, we might have more money 5 years from now.
Yeah.
So I think it's one of those things that, again, I think the building is, I don't wanna speak for any of them, but I think they're all so excited about the building that would probably throw them all over the edge, so they'll be okay.
Yeah, for an extra almost 100 grand.
Right, I think that's part of it too, when you start talking about $100,000, there's a lot. I think
So-
most of them would rather make more money or,
Yeah,
all that.
That's
like
true.
we might rather have half the price of a maintenance shed
Mhm.
than a carport for police cars.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So
The money's still gotta come from somewhere.
Yeah,
it doesn't sound like anybody is super hot for this.
No.
I would
mean,
support
if-
it if we could find a way to make it not financially painful,
but you can't, cause
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
just the
Yeah, 100
price.
grand's 100 grand.
Yeah,
Alright, so I'm not hearing anybody, asking to adopt this one. So the next one on the, going down the line is the electronic message center.
now this is a maybe, I can be convinced on
Yeah,
this,
I
but it's just a.
again, I don't think this is a hill that I would die on, but I like it. I think that, communication with residents is our single biggest feedback point every single time we ask, and this is a tool that can be used for that.
How much
you
would
know,
it, oh, sorry.
All of that said, tools are only as good as how they're used, and so that would require discipline in how we do that and all of that.
I'll send
Sure.
around some examples for you on this, because I think it's always useful to see how the communities are using this. I think it's common to see, some years ago, they were using ones that just had like red LEDs or whatever.
Yeah.
But for this money that you're seeing in front of you today,
Yeah,
that's like
that's a full color. it
That's a
says.
full color,
Yeah.
4K, no, 1080p type, it's a very high definition type screen.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And you're gonna be able to do a lot on it. I mean, and not just, hey, here's my meeting for this evening. You're gonna be able to put with graphics any of your events.
Yeah.
Yep.
You're gonna be able to alter it on a daily, you can pre-program these things with the calendar and they'll put things out. And they'll also switch, so it won't just be one message per day, you can
Right.
swing different messages on them.
Oh, yeah,
You can
rotate
Parks
it
and Rec
every
stuff, you can
30
say, hey,
seconds.
happy 4th of
Right.
July,
Right.
hey, we're off tomorrow, hey, lots of different ways to do that. Hey, and you'll also be able to work with your partners, i.e. the school, when things go on too. So there's all
Yeah.
kinds of things.
I like the idea of it. I'm curious as to where it goes.
It goes right
I
up.
see where it says Alt 2 in here,
Front.
but it's hard.
This map, so if you look at this
Yeah.
map, where all two is,
Yeah.
that line right in the middle where it's like the little rectangle,
Okay,
that's the actual location. We can move the location, but this
Yeah.
is the proposed location up front.
That's this little guy right there.
right,
It would
okay. But do you think
Visible from the street.
that's
Yep.
my question. Is
Yeah.
it truly
Oh, yeah.
visible from both
Yeah.
directions?
This is an 8 foot by 4 foot, 32 square feet
8 by
plus.
4, okay.
You can see it really well, so there won't be any problem with that out there.
That's
Eh.
the screen itself, right? 8 by 4?
It's 8 foot 6 inches, 3 foot, the message board itself is
Oh.
3 foot high, where you actually
Yep,
have the
I see
screen.
the, yep.
That's 24 square
40,
feet
yeah.
plus, so
I'm curious,
it's big.
I'm wondering
It's up.
if, you can scan a QR code off of one of those.
Oh,
I've
you
never
can.
tried, but I don't know if the definition's high enough that
Well,
would.
hold on, the matrix of 40 by 120, 40 lines by 125 columns, I am going to guess that scanning a QR code, because we're not,
It's not detailed enough,
unless,
it's not.
it's full color,
Right.
but it is saying, well, it's saying
Pixel pitches.
15.85.
I mean, that's not a deal breaker
No,
for me,
but
but I
that
think it
would
would
be
be
a cool
cool
use
if you
case.
could
Yeah.
drive by.
I think you can.
Remind me of Bill.
Well, yeah.
But
A lot
I
of
think from
people
a
walk.
distance you can
Yeah,
see it.
yeah.
I think it'll be dependent on, you
Yeah.
can't do it close up, but I think from a distance,
Yeah.
you could scan the QR code walking along.
I'd
It is
be-
potential.
If you can find,
That's interesting.
if you could find
Okay.
someone local that has what they're recommending, I'd love to.
There's
look
many
at it.
examples,
Okay.
I will work to get you something to see.
Love
And
to
I'm
see it.
only gonna throw this in, and I'm not, again, I'll vote for any of this, you guys are good, but here's my little 2 cents. I will tell you that there's people that do not like flashing lights in the village whatsoever. And I actually have multiple complaints about they don't like,
By the way,
they do not like anything by the streets, they do not like that we do not enforce that people leave lights up all year round at the street, like the, I have public record, I can actually show you, and I have more than one.
Wait,
You
what
do.
lights at the
So-
street?
So like people leave Christmas lights up around their mailbox and they do not like it, and I don't,
Sucks to be them.
Yeah, I-
so I'm just saying, you will have residents that do not like the lights.
Look,
so,
I think there's a,
so you may, just if I may.
Yeah.
These, by the way, are fully programmable, they have sensors, you can set the power as
To
far
turn
as
it
the
off.
lighting power. You can also have timing, so if you wanna dim it, you can dim it way down for night stuff.
yeah.
It comes up it's fully viewable in sunlight, so it has that brightness to overcome the sunlight, but they generally have the ability, especially a good one, they have a sensor, it'll lighten itself down, it'll brighten it up, you can
Yeah.
program all this stuff,
Right.
so.
Again, I'm
and
not.
you don't
the-
have to make them flash.
Yeah, and I'm
It's
not
up to
the
you
one that
guys.
doesn't like I like streetlights, I like the fact that it's so dark in here, and I trust me, that is always a conversation that people like it dark. And I don't, I love streetlights, so I'm just pointing out that we have received complaints before because they do not like people's things out near the street because
I will
it
say
bothers
this,
them.
there are people who are bothered by everything
Yes.
and everything in this world, so.
I have
So
said
let's see.
before that people would be mad if the village were handing everybody gold bricks.
I want a
because they'd
silver
rather-
one.
They'd rather silver, they'd like, they'd
want
like
a
it in
silver
different
one.
denominations. Look, how you're doing it right when at least some people are complaining.
Yes, that's true.
If everybody
Now,
were
at the
happy,
same time, none of
they'd
these
do it.
actually need a decision because we
No.
can't push them on Thursday.
but we
Unless
can know.
get a different,
But it's
Yeah.
good to get it,
Right.
so
If-
far, I'm still a maybe, I understand it, I think there's gonna be a
I-
lot of drive
Yeah.
safe flashing on there for 60% of the time.
It'd be-
Because there's nothing going on.
You know, it'd be really cool, is if you could tie it into a speed sensor and tell a person,
I think actually you can.
hey buddy, you're going too
That's a great
fast.
idea.
That's not, yeah.
That's a great
Yeah,
idea.
I mean, that's good.
The problem
But it should
with
say it
that-
just like that, hey
There-
buddy,
there's
you're
the
going.
problem with that is it's
can.
such a short trip from that corner up
You-
there
but coming
to
the other
here.
way.
Coming the other way, but going east, it's hard to get above 25
You can,
unless you're
because what
really
we would
trying
do-
in that 50 yards.
Yes,
We-
I'm
we-
sure.
we can-
That's a good idea,
yeah, no,
though.
we can absolutely do it.
Yeah.
That's great.
So I
Good
think,
idea.
I think number 2 is one to at least gather additional information
It's
I
a
agree.
maybe. I
and
even had it down
continue
as a
to
no.
pursue.
When I was first starting this.
Next down the line is Woodland Mix.
Can I ask a question about the electronic board
Yeah.
first?
Yeah.
Is there any way, and again, I'm not trying to do change orders and I'm not trying to do this, is there any way to get the electric out to
Yes.
that?
Oh, absolutely.
And just leave it alone, and
Absolutely.
if we did do it in a year or in 6 months
So
or?
just run the conduit with.
So they'll,
Correct.
so they'll
Presumably,
run-
we're gonna wanna have lights lighting up that sign.
So, yeah,
Yeah.
well,
So
yeah,
there should
the
be electric
sign,
out there anyway.
absolutely, absolutely. So the sign, the foundation, everything will be put in when they do certain stages,
Okay.
right? So the electric will be run when the electrician's doing everything. They'll get all of that out there, and you're absolutely right, Mayor. This will be one of the last things that's completed.
Okay.
It'll be done in a year anyways. You'll have time to kind of ponder how you wanna do this stuff a little bit. They've got it mixed in there. You have time for your final sign design, cause there's a
Okay.
lot of details on this, okay? And, you know, if you guys love the sign and you change your mind, it's
Right.
not built, you can still, it's not fabricated, you can still redo it toward the, but it's not gonna be the first thing that goes in by any means.
I would
Months off.
imagine that the graphics are driven by a computer that
Yes.
has to be inside.
Yes, correct, that's how
So
it's done.
the conduit that
Yes.
runs out there has
You'll have an
to,
Ethernet.
has to be there to carry the,
Yep,
whatever is carrying the
Yep.
signal out to the sign. And if that were laid in advance, then we could
you could,
kick a decision down.
yes, you could.
Okay,
And how much for one of those signs with the arrows and the lights and you put the little plastic letters in that you see at diners?
Most of those have been banned, but yes, you could, they're.
Banned by who? Cause we're.
You can do what you want, I'm just
You
saying,
could-
most of it, I think that's called changeable type. I think our code says that's a no, if I'm not mistaken.
But we can
accept
We
ourselves.
can, we
You
can
could
change
definitely
it.
do
Yeah,
it.
that's, I think we're trying to upgrade, not.
Yes,
Yeah.
and
Yeah, I
that's,
was going
and
for
have
the
you guys
design.
ever played around with one of those?
yes.
They take some work to do, and they'll eat up Barb or whoever pours time to do it. It's
Yeah.
easier to program it and send it out there.
They
Save-
are not fun.
Yeah.
I'm a hard no on that.
Yeah.
Hard
I'm an
no.
elementary teacher, I've used an Ellis cutter to cut out letters and make signs and billboards before. It's not that hard, you just get out a piece of paper, you
Well,
write
it's
your
much
words,
higher.
It's
you
different.
count your
It's-
letters,
it's not
you
the
cut
same.
them out, you put them, and that's with having to cut out the letters.
So it's
Let
not-
alone just pull a bunch of ends out of the box.
No poor clerk who's worked for any municipalities enjoyed that particular duty, and I've been through several where they've had
I
those
was
signs.
the lowest rung on a ladder and had to change one of those stupid signs.
You're like, I'm
And I
out.
swear to God, if I ever see one again.
Alright, well,
So
moving
you're
on.
saying
Not
don't call
moving
your
on
phone.
to the 8:30 meeting here.
Yeah, moving on to woodland mix plantings.
So.
I'm out of this
This is all
conversation.
of this area over here, right?
Mhm.
My concern with any plantings at all is Arts in the Park. Cause if we have something there, they're using this area over here, now we have plantings there instead.
I also
So-
think we can plan our own wildfires for less than 30,000.
I'd like
Well,
to
it's
see the
more-
mix, because this is, to get this done right is expensive, and that actually doesn't look like that bad compared to.
Well, yes, but this
No,
is
I'm
the,
not-
you know,
I'm not-
there's a picture of a Big Mac on a commercial.
No, I mean the
But you
price.
open it, oh, the price, okay, I thought you meant the
It's-
picture, I'm like, yeah,
No,
the
this
picture
isn't
looks
a real
awesome.
picture.
It looks amazing.
I mean,
I'm just gonna go with,
The
we
silver-
have all the natural stuff that we
Yeah.
want right over there, and I'm not in disagreement. We get people that want to do movie night here, we get people that wanna do different things, and I think you're taking that away.
Right.
If this is the only land, you're getting ready to use some of our
I think what you
land.
need is the landscaping plan,
Yeah.
so.
I would like
Well,
to
it
see
says
what
it's
their
here
mix
all
and what their
three,
larger
which is
plan
gonna
is,
be
but I am.
this space.
Yeah, I mean, it
Yeah.
looks like.
I
there's
totally
a-
agree.
So if you look, so what's, so what if you see what's over here, is that there is gonna be some landscaping against the building, and I was trying to pull the
Yeah.
actual plan.
Right.
Real
Yeah.
quick, and I can send that around, so people can see it.
I mean, we're already eating up some of that space
You
with the
are.
new building, so I'd hate to further
And it looks
hinder
like, at
Harrison
least when they
Brothers.
say where alt 3 is, it's not, I mean, if this was just under the trees, but then that's annoying, cause it's hard to get things to grow under trees.
Well, and that's interesting.
If it's not where trees are, then that's our grass and that is our field space.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's all that's out there. That's
Yeah.
what, I mean, I am in total agreement with
I
that.
think the.
You don't get a vote.
I know, but he makes a
You
very
still-
good
You
point.
still have an opinion that you can.
I do have an
voice.
opinion,
You have
'cause
an opinion, you can vote.
MPCA uses that space.
So
Yeah.
that, well, this brings up a 2 points, so I think, and that's why I wanna pull up the plan, and I'll get this around. That's an important thing to know, because I don't think I think they had already planned on doing some landscaping out there, Mayor, which is, if you notice,
Oh, yeah.
the mulch beds grass was already in the base bit, so there was already some plans to do some stuff out there. Now, maybe this be against the building as shown.
See, I was thinking it was just against the building when we,
I think, I see
Yeah,
it
I
on
think
that
you're
plan,
right.
I wanna double check, because
Yeah.
if it's gonna impact your area you're talking about, then there may need to be,
I mean, a
a
flower
change.
bed's what, 3 feet wide, I don't think that's,
Potentially.
I don't think that's
Yeah.
gonna hinder anything out there.
Because no one's hugging the building and those
My,
things.
my biggest problem with this one is that with the world in the state that it's in right now, I have a hard time imagining the what and the where. And I do think that it's a good idea and it seems like it's the right, potentially the right stuff. But I do think this is something that isn't directly coupled to construction.
Yeah.
It is something that, you know, once the site is in a place where we can say, that is where we want our woodland mix, we could make a plan at that point in time and woodland mix it up
Right.
without, without committing to anything this early in the game.
Yeah,
Yep.
and I know more than 3 people who have successfully planted, various woodland mixes and natural things, either in their own yards or around the village, and
Oh yeah, we've got tons of wildflower, ferny,
yeah.
in our yard. I get that
Yeah.
it's not, but having it done in a sustainable way with a plan is good. I am for that. I just think that this is one that is good to remember for next spring when the site is, as torn up as it's gonna be, and then we can, put our
Which is a
And
nice
they-
thing,
and
if
they-
they've already gone in and,
You know, the torn up site will help reduce things like bush honeysuckle or all
Yeah.
the other invasives out there. I
That
mean,
is true.
I can see what you're saying about it not being directly construction related. I don't know.
Yeah.
In my mind, it's part of our responsibility to lead by example into the future as we really recognize and begin to repair the environmental damage that so many decades prior to us have done, and some continue to this day.
So I'd be
I don't know.
more in favor of spending money like this on the reserved areas, putting wildflowers in some place like that.
I totally agree.
Mhm.
Yeah.
You know,
I can see that
butterfly
for sure.
gardens, things like that, but as far as this building and the uses of this building, I'd
Yeah.
like to keep the options open for people to use that space.
We
that
get
green
people that
space.
cut through there every single day,
Yeah.
all day long, next
So-
to my window.
So
And that's
David,
how
I'm
they,
not
there's a
saying
path
I'm
that goes through
against
there. Not that
your-
it's still
what
gonna be
you're
there, I'm just
proposing.
saying.
I just don't know if this space is the right space for it.
Oh, I
And
totally
maybe-
agree.
And maybe not that whole area, but we definitely, when we consider the landscaping around the building,
But
I firmly believe
front
that
of
we
the
need
building's
to
different.
continue,
Yeah.
or we'll look at native.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh,
This
yeah,
is,
yeah, yeah.
this specifically says areas west of the building, so we're only
Okay,
talking
so
about.
no one's in favor of that, let's move on to
Well,
4.
no, David is very much in
David's
favor of
David's
it.
in
that's
favor.
right.
And
Oh,
and
yes.
I think
Oh.
we're all
I know when I
largely in
was
favor of the
invited, but I'm very in
idea,
favor
Yeah.
just it needs a different application, so,
Yeah, we wanna revisit it,
but we
sure.
can, I think none of us have any appetite for shingles.
We can't talk about it anyways.
Why,
We can't
yeah.
do it.
Yeah, we can. We could absolutely do that,
There are ways
because
we
then,
could do it.
because then that would free up 55 grand to swap out elsewhere,
Yeah.
right? It
I don't
reduces
know
the.
that you can. This is, that's, like, the other stuff is like stuff, like, outside of the building, like, this is in the building, like, on the building.
No, that's,
So, where there's a will, there's a way, Mayor, is all I'm saying.
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
but I don't think
But
there's
I
any
think all of us
will.
want a nice metal roof that'll last 50 years.
I
instead
will,
of-
I will throw the shade and say that Able Roof
I wouldn't have called them
Tells
if
you-
my life depended on it.
tells you roofs last 12 to 20 years.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but
well-
Mattress Factory tells you your mattress lasts 3 to 5 years, and that's just because they sell mattresses.
You're just not using mattresses enough.
You can only
8 hours
sleep
a
so
night.
hard.
Okay,
Moving
let's
on.
move on.
I know,
Alright, manual transfer switch, I think this, is important.
yeah.
I think
Especially with,
How much we've gone out
Yeah, the way-
recently?
yeah,
the way that power goes out around here, the way that, severe weather is only gonna be getting more severe in this world that we live in. It is the kind of thing that if we want this building to be operable in those times, it goes a long way.
Yeah.
I only don't have one in my house because, dealing with the 240 main scares the bejesus out of me, and I'm too cheap to pay someone to do it in my own house. But mixing it into this project, I think is the right thing.
And it is more construction. The argument's much sounder for construction.
Yes, with new construction,
I suppose we have choices here, but is this a brown roof, a black roof,
Well, right now, I believe, and I'm sorry,
it's
to pull the
green in the
plans down.
pictures, isn't it?
I think
Is it?
you guys chose a color scheme.
Oh, that's right.
It's up
Yeah,
here.
we went with the mid-century modern.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It's not on that one, I do remember it now, there was two
Yeah,
exterior color
Mhm.
choices.
I'll verify what that says. when you're
I
on the
forgot,
plans, too.
was roof on that?
It was all part of the same scheme,
Okay.
yes,
Okay,
it was.
I can find it.
Yeah, yeah.
Alright,
Got it.
so
Thank you.
pursuing transfer switch,
Okay.
and then next up
Well,
is,
you say you like the transfer switch, I don't know what we heard from.
I'm in
Jason
favor.
said yes. It sounded like, thought I heard a positive statements from David.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head going forward, weather patterns will be more erratic, stronger, and more damaging. So, I mean, if we're considering a building, if we built the roof to last, and well into the middle and possibly later years of this century, the weather ain't gonna be very pretty when we get there.
Mark, do you have an opposing opinion?
Well, at only 35, I can live with it. It's another one I don't think, I understand the idea of inclement weather and people taking advantage here, I don't.
Well, it's not even just people taking advantage here, it's the utility of the building in that
Yeah.
time, right? So
Yes,
if the
that's
power
what I
goes out, we certainly don't want our police department
Or the emergency response. For the
to,
building.
Yeah.
to shut down, or
But that's not, cause,
There's a generator system for emergency stuff.
yeah, I was
That
gonna
will-
say,
there'll
I
be
would
emergency
imagine
lighting.
enough for the police to operate.
Well, there'll be things that we can still plug in, like if we need to charge radios, if we need to have some computers
Body
running.
cams and all that.
There'll be some ability to do that.
Yeah, I mean, that's
on
what,
that
cause this wasn't for an additional generator, I figured we had emergency backup.
Yeah.
For the essential things like
Right,
the
right,
police,
right.
so this is
But this
not
is-
to make that.
This
But
is-
not just the
that would
police,
be,
but
that would
yeah,
be basic, so,
administration.
so
Yeah.
this would be needed, so this could be used for keeping the building heated and.
Yes, but-
And AC'd and make it
Yeah.
usable by staff and the public in an emergency.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
which is key.
but no, I could go for that one.
I know we didn't get to this yet, but, should the, desire of council be to put the snow melt system in, would it power that? Would it melt the
Potentially,
snow?
I mean, it all depends on what, and I'm gonna go back and have a
'Cause I
discussion.
don't know how this
because I
works.
have an idea, if you're
You have
spending
little heaters in the
30,000,
middle of
there's
concrete
other ways
that
to.
heats up. Like having a heated floor in your house.
Is it
Yeah.
electric?
So yeah,
or
it's,
is it-
there's a picture of it, I thought, you
There
can
is
see
a
what it
picture.
looks like,
Yeah, I'm sure it's electric.
So it's similar to what you would do, because I really wanna do one when I redo my bathroom, I wanna do an under the
Yeah,
floor
but that's
heater.
usually
Well, those are
hot
usually
water.
water.
usually.
Yeah, correct.
This
This is a different system, this is, so the glycol's, think of it as an antifreeze type
Yeah.
fluid. So it goes in there and it keeps it pulls that,
So it
it
is
heats it out
still,
and pulls the cold away.
It's still liquid that's pumped through.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay.
Yes,
It's-
and that'll allow it to keep that nice and clear.
And their glycol systems are very good at maintaining a temperature. They're not as good at, rapid temperature change.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So, when you see the storm system coming,
Yeah.
you would turn it on so that as the snow starts or the ice condition starts, it never has a chance to
To
stick.
It doesn't go from
I mean,
cold to wow, this is cold.
And I know we skipped over number 6, but since we're talking about it, I like the thought of this in conjunction with the generator,
Yeah,
but without that,
Yeah.
like,
It's,
it's nice, it's great, but. we could
It's a
do
useful thing
really-
to do, and
Yeah.
it's expensive, so it's
Yeah.
a,
So a
It's-
lot of money so
it
that
is.
someone doesn't have to shovel
it is.
4 or 5 times a year.
Yeah,
Where we,
like, what's the-
where we see them used a lot is when I'll give you a good example, so when
Minnesota.
we've got guys working on trucks,
Mhm.
and they're in a garage on a concrete floor, and you don't want your guys freezing on their backs every day for 8 hours.
Sure.
They use them for things like that, and
Yeah.
especially winter changes, when the doors have to be open and it's freezing, so that's where you see applications to keep people comfortable. This is a useful thing, but it is a pricey useful thing.
Right,
yeah.
and is it all of the exterior
I can see some
sidewalks?
potentials to break.
I mean, is that what, is that what's covered
What's
for
the-
$90,000?
I mean, you have pipes
Is that all of the
with
sidewalks?
liquid
All of the
sidewalks,
sidewalks, to my
cement,
knowledge, is
Systems
covered
for
all in
every
front.
liquid.
And they're all being replaced
On the
right
map.
in the building, so.
Yeah,
We're
everything's being,
talking about, it looks like there's.
everything up front that goes in public
police
areas.
department,
Oh, no, it's way too
and then
expensive. in-
3 or 4 up front.
Yeah, we don't
So, yeah.
need to spend $90,000, so we have to shovel our sidewalk.
So, yeah, it's all, it's everything, it's all the sidewalks
I mean,
shown on the
isn't that what it
plan,
comes down to?
all the sidewalks on the plan.
I mean, I like what he was saying, like, hey, some loading bays and stuff where the people are on the floor use them, because otherwise, you have people, lying
that-
down on
Is that
40
including some of
degrees
these parking
cement.
spaces too?
Yes,
That was
everything,
said-
everything
I
should
mean,
be.
that's a lot
It
of
is.
concrete.
So,
That doesn't seem like a
so-
bad price for that much.
no,
But
and to give you an
I get it.
example of the one I was using before, that glycol system cost, and this is pre-COVID, cost that gentleman like $350,000 to put, because of the amount of concrete and the size of the vehicles. So you're getting a price, it's not bad even post-COVID for that, it's more than it probably would have been pre-COVID,
Well,
but
Yeah.
everything's.
But I get it, I mean,
Yeah.
like, it's.
Because on
it's a
this, it
luxury
just
item,
says
so-
7, which is just the main sidewalk lighting up to it, it's not all the others.
Well, 7 is,
Unless 7 looks like that main sidewalk coming
it
up
says,
that does
this alternate
branches.
impacts
Oh.
all new sidewalks
It does
in the
say
front
the
north
north.
of the building.
Yeah.
So
All new sidewalks in the
This is
front north.
all the sidewalks.
So that's
everything.
just the sidewalks, not any of the parking spots.
No, not the parking
But the
spots.
the sidewalk that goes to the parking lot.
And all the
But
sidewalks in
I mean,
front.
obviously not the old section down
Right.
here, they're not gonna dig up.
Everything
Or
out there is
no,
getting
that's-
yanked out.
Yeah.
Everything's getting replaced. So all the new sidewalks out there, everything you see on this plan
It's-
is glycol.
It's a lot.
Yeah,
it's
no,
a
I was
lot.
talking about the walking trail where the
It's-
parking is now.
No, not that.
Yeah,
Everything-
that's all I was saying is the
Yeah.
old thing.
It's,
Yeah.
it's, I'm
It's not
sure
something you
if you
can
break
add
it
easily
down,
later.
No, you gotta pull all the bricks,
Yeah.
you gotta pull everything.
yeah,
over.
you couldn't do
You
it, you
gotta
can't
pull-
do it later, it's a
Yeah.
now or not.
Yeah,
But, and I'm sure, if you
know.
think about it in like a per square foot thing, it's probably not that much per square foot. This
I know.
definitely,
Yeah,
this tickles the edge of luxury,
yeah.
and I,
get it.
More than
I
a
don't
tickle,
think
in my
it tickles,
opinion.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think
it is
Doing other
definitely
things
in
too.
my dreams
Yeah.
for, when I redo my concrete driveway, but even at that, it's just my dreams, like
Is there,
And
what
you're
Well,
about,
it's something else to ponder on if you want, go ahead, sir.
well, I was gonna say, is there a compromise where there's certain parts of the sidewalk that maybe we put this in and not the whole thing? Or is it
Well,
just
it's
a no? or-
what I'll say on that is, it's a scale issue, right? So, there's a certain, and I'll have the architect opine on this, but what I'll tell you is that you've gotta pull wire and you gotta pull the system out there and stuff,
Yeah,
and.
there's a
and at
base
that-
expense,
Exactly,
and it
and at
may
that
not be
point,
worth
where
it.
you're expanding
Yeah,
a little more,
I
it's
get
really not that big of a deal.
it. I get it.
What I'm just gonna tell you is that all that sidewalk out there, someone will have to clear it. And as you know, and I don't know, no one here knows, because you're all gonna make the decision, how you're going to create your maintenance team in coming years and how this is handled. But, it's much more sidewalk with this structure now than it was as it
Yeah.
exists.
Yeah,
And someone's gonna have to do it, and your time doing that versus however else we're dealing with things in the village. So again, there is a cost of labor every time we have to deal with it, January and February.
well, maybe we
You also-
invest in a snow blower.
you, oh, yeah,
Yeah, up to you guys.
yeah, way,
Yeah,
way
be a lot
cheaper
cheaper.
to invest in a
Good.
snow
I
blower
would take a snow joke.
and, well, a plow for the
Yes.
UTV.
Yes,
A,
I'm with you.
they make
Yeah,
these,
the brushes, yeah.
the brushes
Those brushes are nice.
that you can brush all
Yeah.
that,
Oh, yeah.
is provided it's not ice.
That's fine, I'm not gonna,
Yeah.
I'm
Right,
not
there's-
losing sleep
Alright,
over
No,
so
this,
we
but-
killed the snow belt
Yeah.
system.
Yeah.
Yay, now
Uh,
do you
6,
wanna go
this
back
is
to
the only one I
6?
supported.
The pavers?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
I
like
just,
Myself as well.
And now, but at the same time, I'm like, well, we can
But-
probably do it later, but at the same time, it's probably cheaper, cause they're gonna
Cheaper
be
to do
here
it.
with concrete.
Yeah.
And they're like, yeah, we could do an extra set of stairs, we're already here, we got a truckload.
yeah,
We're not gonna get it done that cheap
yeah, I
later.
think there's, yeah, it will make that side of the building just more useful.
It's
Yeah.
very useful to get people around to the back, especially when you have events.
That's
Absolutely.
Yeah,
$4,000.
yeah, that's an, because I mean, how much do we pay for those
That's fine.
tiny
If-
little steps when
If
we
anything
put them
on
in
that,
for
it just
the?
wasn't part of the original design.
Yeah,
I don't know why.
But is the point of
Tiffany, how
that-
much do we
Talk
pay
about
for the little
afterwards.
steps we have out there
So
in
if we need
the
something over here,
police
so we food in
office?
the office.
7,000.
That's how that happens.
Yeah, so this is.
6,000.
This looks to be bigger and cheaper than what we did, because, once
They'll already
again,
be here.
they're already on site, they're already pouring concrete, they already have all of that, and it's a quick, easy
So
thing.
is this just steps coming down, or does this connect up to the front walkway?
It looks like it connects to the front walkway.
It's not clear, it just says between the lower south lawn and the upper west lawn. So is it just to kind
Well,
of get
the upper
down?
west lawn would be here, and that would be the lower right,
What are we talking about?
south
So-
lawn,
We're trying
so
to
it would
figure
connect
out-
to,
It's gonna
It
go,
might not go to the
it's gonna
sidewalk.
connect, yeah, no, absolutely. We had this discussion with them, and that's why it's
Okay.
on here as an alternate. It's gonna go from the sidewalk around the building and
Okay.
then interconnect to our stuff back here, because we have stairs that go to the future deck.
Yeah.
So it's gonna connect to that point, so that
Yeah.
people can make their way around the building back to the lawn.
yeah, that's an easy one.
Yeah.
That's an easy yes.
Yes.
So where do we land here? This is.
We have a yes on 5 and 7, and we're still a maybe on 2.
No, 7 was a hard no.
7 was alternate glycol.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, 5 and 6,
So-
5 and 6.
5 and 6 are yeses.
6,
5 and 6 were yeses, 2 was
And-
still a hard, was still a
And
no,
the
a
electronic
maybe.
message center, we asked for more.
Yep, and then David asked me for some specs on the alternate
Yeah.
3, so I'll get
Yeah,
those.
because I mean, while we're tearing everything up,
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't have to go out and
to me,
rent,
to me, it's logical and frankly moral.
you don't have to rent, we can just put down grass seed.
We most certainly could.
Some
And
some
we
good
most
old
certainly
fashioned
should not.
Kentucky
Grass is
bluegrass.
included in the base.
Where are all the bees? Where are all the butterflies? Oh, look at that, my acres of grass.
But I don't know that this is a good place for butterflies and stuff, it's not sunny.
Butterflies come everywhere.
Yeah.
Put down some flowers.
And mostly they're in my
butterflies,
backyard and
butterflies.
front yard, cause I have tons of flowering pollinators, cause, you know, I do.
I mean, I don't disagree that that there should be some space for events, absolutely.
All right,
Get with people tomorrow
Yeah, I
and,
think that was what we were looking to accomplish. Does anybody have any, old business? New business? Move to adjourn?
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any, opposed? Abstentions? All right, let's get out of here.